What's up everyone, welcome back to the beginner breakdown series for King of Fighters 14. In this episode we're going to go over Yamazaki. If you've never seen a beginner breakdown before, this video series is intended more for beginners or players who are just trying to learn the basics of a character. With that in mind, let's get started. As always, we're going to go over far normals first. Here's far light punch. That is a mid, it can be blocked both crouching or standing. It's just a little bit negative on block and you can super cancel it. You want to note that if you're going to be using this as a poke, you probably don't because it will whiff on most crouchers in the game. Here's far light kick. It is a mid, and we block both crouching or standing. It's a little bit negative on block. I think it has a little bit more range than far light punch. It's a little bit better of a poke, and you can super cancel it. Here is far heavy punch. Yamazaki moves forward a little bit before throwing out that punch. It's a mid, so we block both crouching or standing. It's a bit negative on block, but you probably don't have to worry about that because it does push back, and you can super cancel it. Here's far heavy kick. That is a mid. We block both crouching or standing. It's just as negative as this far heavy punch, but it's a much better poke. It covers a lot of distance. You can kind of use this to harass a little bit if your opponent is kind of running in on you without defending too much. We're gonna go over close normals next. Here's close light punch. That is a mid. It's a little bit plus on block, and you can super and special cancel it. Here's close light kick. It is a mid. It's just a tiny bit negative on block, and you can super and special cancel it. Here's close heavy punch. That is a mid. It's a bit negative on block, but you probably don't have to worry about it getting punished because it does push back a bit. And it is super and special cancelable. Here's close heavy kick. That is a mid. You can block both crouching or standing. It's a little bit negative on block. Don't have to worry about it being punished. And it's super and special cancelable. We're going to go over crouching normals next. Here's crouching light punch. That is a mid. You can block both crouching or standing. It's even on block, and you can special and super cancel it. You cannot chain this or link it into itself. Here's crouching light kick. That is a low. It's a tiny bit negative on block, and you can't special cancel it. If you do want to special cancel after opening them up low, you'll have to go into crouching light punch afterwards, and that is a link, I believe. So the timing's pretty lenient, but you'll have to practice it a little bit. Here's crouching heavy punch. That is a mid. It can be blocked both crouching or standing. It is very slow, so you probably won't be using this at neutral as like a button. You can super and special cancel it, but like I said, you probably won't be using it for that. It's a pretty okay anti-air, however. If you do press it early enough, you can hit somebody out of the air with that, and it can beat some slower button presses, or if the opponent is pressing or like they're doing their jump in really deep. It might trade on quicker buttons, like with light punch buttons or jumping light kick buttons. Here's crouching heavy kick. That is a sweep. It's a low, so it can only be blocked crouching. Has really good range on it. It's a bit negative on block, but probably not gonna be punished because of the good range on it. And even then, it's super and special cancelable, so you could try to make it safe. You could do something like that, like with his stance cancels, to make it even more difficult to punish on block. And I'll go over those stance cancels later in the special move section. We're going to go over jumping normals next. Here's jumping light punch, light kick, heavy punch, and heavy kick. You could jump in or short hop with jumping light punch. That works, and jumping heavy kick. I would probably stick with jumping heavy kick. You could use a jumping heavy punch as an air-to-air. It's pretty quick for a heavy button. It just has pretty limited horizontal range, so you'll probably just use it as a neutral jump. Kind of like air-to-air button. You can't really use it to jump in, especially if the opponent's crouching. If they're standing, yeah, you could hit them with it, but you can't really short hop with it. Speaking of buttons that kind of whiff on crouchers, Yamazaki's jumping blowback attack has the same issue, and you can execute that by hitting heavy punch and heavy kick while in the air. It looks like this. It's not a great jump in or short hop button or option, because it does tend to whiff on crouchers whether you hit it early or if you hit it pretty late. It's very similar to Benimaru's jump CD. Of course, you can use it as an air-to-air though. It will work as that. So you probably won't be using very many different jumping buttons. You'll probably just be using jumping heavy kick the most. We're gonna go over his command normals next. He has two of them. His first one is forward and light punch. This right here. So if you just use it out at neutral, it is an overhead. So if the opponent is crouch blocking, that will open them up. It has really good range on it, just about right there. If you wanted to convert off of it, you can super cancel it. And you can even go to Climax super as well. You just can't really go into this super if they're crouching. There's a good chance it could whiff. And of course you can max mode cancel if you wanted to convert off of that overhead as well. You can also use forward and light punch in combos, like canceling his normals into that command normal. And it will combo, and you can really only get it off of things with high hit stun, so it's heavy buttons basically. But you lose the ability to special and super cancel it. On top of that, it loses its overhead property, so you probably won't be using it that way. It's probably best to use that neutral to open up opponents who are crouch blocking a lot. Just using it out as neutral, it's pretty safe on block. It's only like a tiny bit negative. Next up we got forward and light kick, this big old kick right there. So on hit, as you see, it does a hard knockdown, has a ton of startup, so you probably won't be using it out at neutral like that. And on top of it, it's very negative on block. It can be pretty easy to punish. It can be pretty useful for combos if you cancel his heavy buttons. So like close heavy punch into forward light kick, that will combo, and you can use that to go into a special move as well because it is super and special cancelable. The frame data doesn't change too much, or it doesn't change at all I should say, on if you do cancel into it. It is pretty negative on block. If you wanted to try to make that safer like for block strings, I would suggest learning his stance cancel, and again I'll go over that later. Then we're going to go over his blowback attack, which you can execute by hitting heavy punch and heavy kick while on the ground. Looks like this. He takes a big old step forward before kicking him. It's a little bit negative on block. It's pretty difficult to punish, especially considering it pushes back a lot on block. And you can also super and special cancel it to try to make it safer. And that includes the stance cancels. Quickly go over throws. Here's his forward throw, since they opponent full screen. Don't really get to pressure them afterwards. And here's his back throw. It causes a hard knockdown, and you can almost get in on them. We're going to go over special moves next. The first one he has is like a three-parter. It's a core circle back plus light punch, light kick, or heavy punch. And I'll just call them the snake strikes. So that's the light punch version of it. That's light kick, and then heavy punch. I'm just going to go over them one at a time. The light punch version of it, you'll probably be using the least. You could use it as part of combos, but there's a good chance it'll whiff a lot, especially if the opponent's crouching. You could use it as something like that, as like an anti-air from distances, or rather it can cover distances that crouching heavy punch can't cover, just like a little bit further, not that much further. And then the next one you can do is with light kick. It looks like that. From up close, it's 2 hits, and it's probably his most useful one. You can combo into it from anything with high hit stun or low hit stun, so like his command normals or his heavy buttons, it'll work. And you can go into it from his light buttons as well. It is a bit negative on block, but if you start using it in block screens like that, it becomes difficult to punish from full screen. There's not a lot of normals that could, like, I don't think there's any normal that could really reach this far that's quick enough. The opponent would have to start spending meter to like guard cancel roll to like try to punish it. Or if they have a EX super, usually only EXs would be able to travel that far that quickly. You can also super cancel this, and it's a pretty easy super cancel if you use the shortcut. Basically after you do core circle back, light kick, do core circle forward, light punch, and then you'll get the shortcut for this super. It's pretty simple. So this special move is pretty good in block strings in general, but it's kind of suck on small crouchers in the game. So even if you do it as part of a block string, it'll just whiff over their head, and they can, if they're looking out for it, they can, you know, counter hit you out of it. On hit though, you don't have to worry about it whiffing. Because of its really long range, you could throw it out to like poke. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but it could catch somebody off guard if they're just barely starting to move forward and you're within this range. Just be wary of things that could probably low profile it. And there's nothing tricky about this. It's a mid and can block both crouching or standing. And the next snake strike you can do is with heavy punch. It looks like that. It has a lot of startup on it. It has good range on it. And it is a low, so it can only block crouching. You can only really combo off of it from anything with high hit stun, so his heavy buttons or his command normal. And if you do use it off of like heavy as it is a block string, it pushes, and it also pushes back pretty far, and it's also the least negative out of all of them. You can also throw it out as part of block strings, and if the opponent's not blocking low, they'll get hit by that. You could do that every once in a while, just test your opponent, make sure that they're blocking low, especially if you got them used to seeing this one. Also on small crouches in the game, that one will whiff, like I showed you a little bit earlier. you might have to opt to, instead of doing that, going into the low one. And you can super cancel this one as well. You want to cancel it right on the first hit. That way they're still on the ground. So all three of these that I just showed you, you can hold the button down. And you'll say that eventually he will let it go, and you'll just go back up. At any point during this time while you're holding the button down, you let go of the button, he'll do the snake strike. And while he's in this stance, you can hit heavy kick and he'll cancel it. And that's the stance cancel I was talking about earlier. So anything that's special cancelable, you could kind of like stance cancel it with that. Kind of like that, try to make it a little bit safer, a little bit less negative. Basically, you do the motion, you hold the button down just for a little bit, and then you hit heavy kick. And then of course you hold block afterwards, not like down, back, or back. And you can do it pretty quick. It's like a little bit of a rhythm. You don't want to do it too quick, otherwise it might not register that you held the button down, and then you'll get the snake strike instead of canceling it. You have to hold the button down just for a tiny little bit, and then cancel it with a heavy kick. Then here's the EX version of it. It has really good range, and it is a low, so the opponent has to block it crouching. If you're in max mode, you could throw it out, see if the opponent is crouch blocking from a distance. Maybe they're running in too much. You could catch him with that. And as you saw, he kind of reels the opponent in and stands them up. And there's a couple of follow-ups you can get afterwards. It's pretty limited what you can get afterwards. I'll go over that in a sec. If you're using it at a range, it's pretty difficult to punish. Even in block strings, it's going to be pretty difficult to punish. And you can only get the EX version off of anything with high hit stun, so like his heavy buttons or command normals. So what can you get afterwards? You can get the EX version of this super, and only the EX one. I believe that's his only super that's quick enough to catch that. Unless you're using Climax super, that's also quick enough. You can get his command grab afterwards as well, that's guaranteed, or his EX command grab. You can also get that move afterwards, the EX version of Corsical Forward plus Punch. And only the EX version of that special move. And that's the one that leads into more damage afterwards. And we'll go over that special move later and what you can get off of it. Just a quick tip, you're basically linking a special move afterwards. It's not really a cancel. So you're going to be buffering the input during that whole long animation where he's reeling them in and standing them up. And your goal is to finish inputting that command like as soon as he lets go of them and like puts them on the ground. So that's kind of your timing right there. Next special move he has is half circle back, then forward plus punch. So light punch and heavy punch are the same thing, and it is just a command grab. So you can use that to open up the opponent if he's blocking too much. And because it's so quick, you can combo into it as long as you're within range. So you can get off of low hit stun buttons as well, it's just really range dependent. So I believe that's going to whiff if you try doing it off of his crouching confirm. And then for the EX version, he goes forward a little bit further and he does more damage. And because of that extra range, you can get off of heavy hit stun buttons or even some low hit stun buttons. Next special move he has is Corsical Forward plus Punch. So it'll look like this. That's the light punch version of it. Heavy punch looks almost identical, but it does have a different thing that it does. Basically, these are to absorb projectiles and to send them back. So that's what the light punch version of it looks like. He'll just absorb the projectile and recover. And he also gains a little bit of meter. And that's the heavy punch version of it. He'll absorb the projectile and throw it back. So you have a character that likes to run in after their projectiles like that. You could use that to try to catch them like off guard and hit them with their own projectile. Just be wary that it can get baited out just because there's a lot of startup on the... there's a lot of frames in between him absorbing the projectile and then tossing it out. So that's enough time to give the opponent to roll through it and like punish you. And that's the EX version. It just comes out quicker and does more damage, but it also is rollable if the opponent reads it. You can also combo into these if you wanted to. There's really no point. It will whiff a lot, and even if you do land it, there's not a lot you get off of it. The one that is useful is the EX version of it, and you'll probably end up using it after this, because it's one of the few things that will kind of link afterwards. If you do happen to land it, you do have a couple options. You could wait just a little bit for them to land and then hit them with a super. You can hit them with the other super as well. You can also time a snake strike as they're coming down and super cancel it for more damage. You'll just want to wait for them to kind of get low to the ground, because if you hit them with the snake strike too high, the super's just going to whiff. So for example, I did that right away and that was too high, obviously. You also have enough time to hit them like with one heavy button, like a far heavy punch. I believe you have enough time for blowback attack as well. Yeah, you do. You can also do the EX version of his DP motion, and I'll go over that special move later as well. Next special move is half circle forward and then kick. It looks like that. That's both the light kick and heavy kick version of it. They're the same thing, and that's a counter. Has a decent amount of startup, but it will counter things that are like upper body, or things that will hit his upper body. What I mean by that is, for example, like this crouching light punch is a mid, right? It can be blocked both crouching or standing. But because the hitbox of it is kind of lower body, it just beats the counter completely. For example, like standing light punch is upper body, so it triggers a counter. And that includes jump-ins. And as you see, if the counter lands, it causes a hard knockdown. And you have the EX version of it as well, which means it causes a little bit of a wall bounce, as you saw. And you can convert off of it afterwards as well, with like that special move I just showed you. You can even get a snake strike afterwards and super cancel that. Pretty much almost all the special moves you can get afterwards, except for like his command grab. And of course you can get a super afterwards. And the last special move he has is uppercut motion. It's forward, down, down, forward plus kick. Here's a light kick version of it. That is an overhead. And it's only a little bit negative on block. Pretty difficult to punish, especially since it pushes back a little bit. You can't really combo into it because it has a lot of startup on it. And on hit, it causes a hard knockdown. You can kind of use it as part of block strings to see if the opponent is kind of paying attention. And because of the range, you could hit him after something like that. And then the heavy kick version of it, he'll kick up dust or kick up sand. And what's unique about that special move is that he can cancel into other special moves. And you'll probably just be canceling it into more snake strikes. So for example, you could use it as part of like block strings like that. So even if whether they hit or block, you can just commit to that and it'll push back a lot, making it difficult to punish. At that point, the opponent will have to start spending meter to try to punish that whole block string. And they'll do that by using like guard cancel rolls or like maybe an EX super if there is a super that can reach that far that quickly. Because it is quite negative on block, but you probably won't be using it from up close like that. You can even get off of low hit stun buttons. It's pretty quick. It's just the timing is pretty strict if you're going off of like crouching light punch. So stuff like that is possible. You could also use it in max mode combos to try to squeeze out more damage. So whenever you would do a snake strike in a max mode combo, you could preface it with one of these. And then the EX version of it, the first hit is overhead and the second hit is a low. And you'll get that full can animation if the first hit lands. And it's just 2 hits otherwise. And pretty difficult to punish if the opponent stand blocks the overhead and crouch blocks the follow-up. You could use it as part of combos, and you can really only get off of things with heavy hit stun. And it's something that you could do as like a combo ender after you land this. So you could use it to see if you can catch the opponent sleeping, if they're crouch blocking a lot, if they'll stand up and block it. We're going to go over supers next. His first super is cortical forward twice, plus both punches. Here's the EX one. And his other super is cortical back, half circle forward plus punch. That on hit will cause a poison status effect where the opponent's health will drain a little bit, does a little bit of damage over time. And same goes for the EX version. And his Climax super is half circle back twice and then both punches. and that is a command grab. And during this little freeze frame part, you can mash buttons and he'll do more damage. Yeah, there's a couple different levels of it, and I just mash all the buttons. You'll know you get the most damage by he gets like a little aura at the end, right there, that one. If you want to cancel a super into another super, or a super into a climax super, you can actually go in any direction as long as you're within range for the other supers to land, or like whichever super you're going to cancel into to land. So for example, you can go into punch super, or this super, into climax. You just kind of have to cancel it when he throws the opponent up in the air. And you can cancel into the other super as well. And you're canceling this one like as soon as he pulls out his hand. And again, you can cancel that into climax super as well. We're going to go over some combos to get you started. The easiest stuff I would say is going into like his heavy buttons, into his snake strikes, probably the light kick version of his snake strike. That's pretty simple to start off with. If you wanted to complicate it a little bit more, you could go into the stand kick into the snake strike. There's also his command grab. That's a little bit easier, but a lot less safe. If the opponent blocks, you'll just whiff the command grab in their face. Not a lot of easy stuff from lows. You'll have to learn how to link crouching light kick into light punch. And then from there, even your options are pretty limited. You'll have to go into probably that snake strike. And of course you can go into his stand kick from there as well. Just pretend that comboed, but the timing is pretty strict on that. There we go, that comboed. And I would start there if you're going to be learning some combos, some beginner-friendly combos. And of course, refer to the special moves section. You want to learn what all your options are after these special moves and how you can convert them into more damage. There you have it, the end of the Yamazaki beginner breakdown video. This is my second time recording this. Hopefully this comes out good. I did a couple test runs on OBS on my computer to make sure that this should record correctly. I think it is recording correctly. There might be a little bit of difference in quality of video. I bumped it down to 720p just because I think my computer is really struggling these days to do stuff. So hopefully that doesn't detract from my videos too much. Regardless, let's go to member select. So with Yamazaki down, that means I'll probably end up doing whip next, or I could do Nelson. There's honestly a good chance I'll probably just do whip instead. Characters with like big command moves, or rather characters that have a big command list, which are just filled with command moves. It's a little bit of a mouthful. Or for me, pretty difficult to learn. That's why for me, characters like Angel are pretty difficult. So I'll probably put off Nelson as much as I can. I'd probably do whip next, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Regardless, thank you so much for watching the Yamazaki beginner breakdown, and I'll see you next episode.